Welcome, everybody, to the ConTech Exec podcast. I am excited today because I've got Eric Helitzer from SubBase. And if you haven't heard of it, you need to. I'm glad he's here today. Eric, I want you to tell us all about, what SubBase is and what's going on. How you been, man?
Hey, Robert. Been great. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, SubBase, what are we about? So we're about fixing a very broken and manual process when it comes to materials management. Typically today, if you're managing materials from inception of a request in the field all the way to bringing that invoice back into an accounting system, it's touching multiple hands. There's really a lack of visibility, extremely manual, and there's no real insights into how you can not just buy better, but manage the whole process better. And that's what we do at SubBase. We take a very complicated workflow and we simplify it.
Yeah, it's extremely complicated, right? I mean, there's a lot of hands involved. Not only especially if you're ordering from the field, man, just, you got your POs, you got your people back in the office, you got your reps at the distributor. How many hands you supposed to touch it, from
Six to eight on a single box of 6 to 8 on a single box of nails. And it's typically 6 to 8 on a single box of nails, depending on even if you have a process in place. But and that includes obviously both sides. So we know that very well. It usually costs around $65 an order from the time it touches someone to the time it gets into an accounting system.
It's a lot, and right, and then there's tons of those orders going on every day. So how, what made you decide to say, hey, I really want to be in this crazy business of construction? What in the world? I called somebody crazy the other day because they're jumping into this thing or they're in it, and I'm like, you're crazy. I've been in this business for 30 years. I already know I'm crazy. I'm just saying.
Look, my store, I grew up in it. So my family, my grandfather, my father were builders. I grew up around construction. Grew up in South Florida, so saw the massive booms that were happening, and decided late in my high school career when I was interning for the family company that, hey, I want to go build because it was exciting, right? Every project you build, for those that have built before, you're always looking back and say, oh yeah, I built that, and you're always looking at it in other ways. Most people, when they walk into, you can really tell most builders when they walk into any place, because they're always looking up in the ceiling. Looking up is what I saw my dad do all the time. And so I decided to study it at the University of Florida.
I know you were going to bring that up, man. I knew it.
Well, I just came back from there. But the University of Florida has a great program that I studied construction. And most people, they didn't make fun of me, but they were questioning the career path in construction management. And so graduated and started immediately working in the trades, because the family business that I was interning at in the prior summers wouldn't hire me. And the reason they wouldn't hire me is because they wanted me to get a real field education. They wanted me to learn how to build. And so I did that.
Yeah. And they probably did you a lot of favors there, because again, you're not shielded by anything, especially when you're in a totally different environment, especially in the trades. Working with the trades, they will not, they won't treat you right unless you've got some, you're kind of, there's a pecking order, I guess, was
100%. Right? We not only did learn, I worked in the trades, in the concrete trade for 8 years, interning for 2, working full time for 6. And what I will tell you is that I've learned, it was the most fun, because in the trades, you really can master that craft of building. You see it. It's run differently than, how a general contractor would run his business. But what you learn, that you can take that knowledge and skill, you can't learn out of a tech, you can't study it in school then figure out to build. You have to see it. You have to be involved.
I always compare it to that Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's true. It is absolutely true. You can study it all you want when you're in college. But until you get on that first job site and then, things go awry, you've got all kinds of different personalities. It is I think for me, it was one of the most endeavors I've ever done.
Yeah.
and you don't realize how it shapes you until you get a 3-4 more years in and you start to look back. And then kind of like you said, you're looking around, you're driving around. I still, to this day, when I go, like, I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I go back to Indy, and I'm showing my wife, and, I'm saying, hey, yeah, I built that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I built that.
I do the same
It's
thing
that
with
kind
my
of thing.
kids.
Right.
Yeah, I do the same thing with my kids because what's cool about the industry is like, like you can do a lot of different things, right? You can get into accounting, you can get into operations, into pre-con. There's so many hats you can wear. And then everyone, the camaraderie around building a building, because of how complex it is and how many people are involved, you build that type of camaraderie and that type of bond when you build something that's very much like a physical attraction that's going to be there hopefully forever. And when you come back and see it, it like sparks memories of, oh, I remember like this one detail that we got screwed on, or like I remember how much money we lost here, but oh, no one knows because they look at the building and say, oh my God, you must have made a lot of money there. It's like, well, actually, we
Yeah.
didn't. You know?
Yeah. We actually got
Yeah,
taken on that one, but hey, we still built it. We finished it. And that integrity portion is another thing where it's like,
sure.
one thing about it is there is no backing out. Once you're in, you kind of in it, and you've got to finish the job, and you've got an integrity
And that was
portion.
exactly the motto of the owners of the business that I worked in on the GC side. That was their exact motto is, even if you got a bad owner, even if you have one that and they start pulling out those legal documents and those contracts, you finish the job. Like finish it. And that was how we built, was like start to finish. We would, even if things were going so awry and design is changing and owner may not want to pay, and we always finish the job.
Yeah, finish the job. So you worked outside the family business for a while, then you jumped into the family business and realized that, it's just as screwed up as all the other businesses you worked with, right?
Yeah, there's nothing that whoever's working construction, they're all it's messy, it's chaotic, it's
Uh-huh.
controlled chaos. Like that's what it is.
Yeah,
It's literally controlled chaos.
right.
And yeah, working in the family business was great, but it has its positives. It also has its negatives, because when you come in and your father's a partner, or they treat you
They
very
treat a
different
little
than
yeah, they treat you a little
100%.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
so procurement, materials management, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
What was it that triggered it? Wait, it said you were
Yeah.
just like, "Okay, wait a minute. There's gotta be a better way. We've gotta do something." You
Yeah,
decided
I
to
mean,
run down this
it
path.
started it started because I was always involved with technology on the GC side. Actually, when I came over to the family business, the reason I came over was because the founder of that company, who is still a young CEO there, said, "Hey, we got some new jobs that are coming up, and we bought this software called Procore that no one knew, ever, no one
Yeah.
even knew what it was. We want you to test it out on a job." And I said, "Okay, that sounds interesting." And I was looking to now advance my career at the GC level, and I did it, and I was like, couldn't believe how much streamlined workflows there were on just the RFI submittals and just tracking a drawing log, because I was the one physically stapling the packets, driving the submittals to an architect's office, folding over a piece of paper, printing the RFI behind it. Like, we were doing that. Like, that was my job. That was literally, I would say, half of my job. That was it.
Been there.
And we brought
Manual process, like
and we brought
the
in this tool.
binders.
It was the bind, exactly. And I was like, holy cow, this is powerful. And that's what really sparked the interest of, man, like there's a lot of things that you could digitize at the GC level. And we started to see that happen. COVID happens, and all of a sudden, I'm out on a job. We go virtual. Everyone's virtual. The jobs in South Florida were still building, and I was managing one of the jobs, and I started to notice that the materials that were coming and going, written down on a hand cardboard, email, phone call, that no one had a clue about, like, where were my materials and consumables. I'm not talking about like long lead item even. We're just talking consumables right now. And man, the price fluctuations on, a box of snap ties versus a 2x4 like piece of lumber were so drastic that it was killing the subcontractors' budgets. They had no idea. Pay apps are going out 70% billed, but the job was only 30% billed, like literally. And owners didn't realize that their margins were just being eaten alive by just the last minute ordering, not being able to track, not being able to get good pricing, and like this like retroactive ability to just get materials.
So
And
So on these early projects, was this
Mhm.
these subs were doing buyouts on their stuff, or
Yeah,
how
so
was
yeah,
that
there's
working?
it was a mixture of, like, buying out the bigger items, which they would lock
Mhm,
in pricing, but even
mhm.
those, like, still, like, a lot of vendors weren't holding their prices on that too,
Yeah, during
you
that
know?
time, they weren't holding their
Mhm.
prices. They were like, "Hey, sorry, man,"
You
because
can't.
everybody was talking, especially at that time, was talking about, and they're still talking about, supply chain. "Oh, my
Yeah.
supply chain is, I'm shot, and I can't." I I remember during COVID, what it 2 by 4s went from $2.50 or something at Home Depot, and then the next week they were like at $10
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
crazy like that. And I'm like,
Yes.
what? And they all were going,
Yes.
oh, it's supply chain. I'm like, supply chain? What? Are you
Yeah.
kidding
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Come on.
No, it was the price fluctuations are insane. Like,
Yeah.
it was so much that it the reason it triggered people to say, "Okay, like, we need to see like, I need to see more." And so owners wanted to see more. It triggered them to say, "Go get pricing," right? "We need to go
Right.
like, we can't just pick up a phone call and order this now." And
Yeah.
that was really eating into their margins because, not many people really were being proactive about those types of materials. And
Yeah.
so we saw it,
And then yeah,
firsthand.
at the same time, when that was going on, I saw, some builders, home builders at the time where then, there was a massive run on, homes, right? The home values went up but people were still buying because interest rates were
Mhm.
just crazy low, right?
Yep.
And then builders were like, "Well, guess what? I gotta raise the price of my house." They're trying to recoup. What a lot of people may not realize, they're probably just trying to recoup for the fact that the materials
Yep.
prices were just going up, and everybody had to scale at some
Exactly.
level.
Exactly. And so, like, it's very much it was very much a, "Hey, like, grab what you can get," right, on some of it, and then some of it
Mhm.
was legitimate, like, legitimately, like, it was hard to get stuff. But, you know, the other piece of this was the technology world in construction was very focused and still is predominantly focused on building for, like, that GC level, right? Like, very heavy GC tech. That's really where, like, a lot of the subs started to hear about, technology was through the GC because the GC was making them use certain things. And what we saw was, hey, no one's really building for that subcontractor and their workflows, which is much different. I mean, the way that a sub runs versus a GC, as far as a business is concerned, is almost night and day difference if you think about it, because um, a subcontractor cares about really three things, right? It's their material labor, and their equipment.
Mhm.
And a GC is like, right, cared about like making sure that the subs that they're hiring and that they're pushing like can actually get the work done. And it's a lot of different risk, a lot of different workflows. And so building for subs was something that we wanted to challenge because A, we know it's a challenge to sell to subcontractors. B, subcontractors don't really buy much software. And C, most people didn't understand their businesses like we did. And so we understood their businesses. So we had enough trust for them to say, yeah, I trust you that you're going to be able to build something for me that's going to solve this problem. And that's where we started building the real early iterations of SubBase, was really just a order tracking, just like track your order and get a quote. Like that was like
And
the first rendition of it.
right, and then it turned into kind of a not as a one-stop shop, but a common place to find all the information, like that source of truth for the
Exactly.
orders. Because
For the orders
we
and
all
a
know
lot
this.
of
Yeah, we
material
all
and
know this. Spreadsheets are the death, of it's the death of information, quite
yeah,
honestly. There's a lot
exactly.
of good stuff in there, but it usually starts out with great intention, but then it turns into
Mhm.
an absolute mess because,
Yeah.
unless there's a lot of rules around it and somebody that really knows how to use Excel, it just turns into an absolute, you know, I won't
Yeah.
say the
No,
word.
it's that's exactly right. But that's also the challenge, right? Is like people that have been on Excel forever, Excel's great to them because, hey, I can do whatever I want with this. Look at this. I can do this. And I'm so familiar with it. And they
It's
have a
great for the
flow in place.
individual. Yeah, it's great for
Mhm.
the individual, but
Right.
just
Right.
sharing information,
Yep.
or, those types of things when it's a need to know, everybody on the list needs to know, it's terrible. It's just
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And so we looked at that and we said, okay, great. Like, how can we make this so that you can actually still have that feel of like you're getting your logs done, but
Mhm.
automate a lot of the manual processes? Obviously, this was real early days of like artificial intelligence just getting into a place where you can start, utilizing it to do a lot more of the workflow automation that we're doing today. And, at the end of the day, we didn't want to change the way that they're doing their process because there is a flow that most structured companies that are ordering materials or managing it have. And
Mhm.
that's what we started building towards, is how do you keep that feel of like, yes, this is my flow, I'm used to it, but also layer on the automation and really give them a tool that can speak their language and take them to that 10x bar that they need to adopt software. They need to see the 10x, or else the subcontractor is not going to adopt, and they're not going to, change their ways.
Yeah, and that kinda leads me to my whole, the part about, adoption.
Yeah.
Many levels, adoption has been, up until now, I'll say, I've seen big increases in the last 3, 4 years. I guess post-COVID, what you would say, but, before, technology was something that, construction companies are a little bit hesitant on. It took a little bit of time, and still today, you get some kind of outliers maybe that, adoption, not because they don't need technology, but because either they've got tech fatigue, their tech stack is way too big. Oh, I've already got something
Yep.
like that. But when they rolled it out, now it's only really 30% efficient than it was supposed to cover all these bases. They got the wrong people to, roll it out, and it never took, wind. It never got wind, never got any product champions behind it, those kind of things. It didn't, or they didn't train properly on it. I mean, again, you go down the whole road. It's almost the same thing as if you get an apprentice and you don't train it up properly or train him or her up properly. Apprentices need help, and I think I feel like software is kind of the same way.
100%.
Software needs help to be able to help you, right? You have to be trained on it, and then you have to train them.
Yep. It is like the most important piece of our business is not how good can you build the software. It's how well can you actually get the implementation done so that you can show them the ROI that they saw when you were showing them the original software. That is the entire challenge of the entire industry, is getting that real life ROI, because a lot of the times what we see is when you're looking at software, for the most part, you're not bringing in every stakeholder of the process. You're not. Because if you did, it would take years for you to sell any of the software because of people's
Yeah.
schedules and times. So you have to really balance the hey, what are you looking for versus what are you solving for? And a lot of what we see is top down. Like, it's got to be top down at first. But every meeting we have, and we have tons and tons a day, your top down leadership knows that they want to solve a problem, but they're always getting validation from the field, from their other people. They're
Yeah.
never, no one is ever making a software decision in construction as siloed space. It's okay, now I want to go bring in this team. Team validates it, and now it's like, great, we saw what we can do here. Now, when you implement the software, you better show them that ROI very fast, or else you won't get the adoption. And you're right, the tool could solve your problem, right? But you never had the right training or the right flows that were set up from the get-go to see that full value on the ROI side.
Right. And I'm not gonna, I don't want to pick on anybody, again, but I think a lot of times they put it in the wrong hands, when they're out there trying to implement new software. Um, I I get it. You got to use your people.
It's
I get it. You got to
Yeah,
use your people, and you got to hold some accountability. You got to put some people up. But there are wrong choices, right? There are wrong choices and like I said, I'm not picking on anybody. I'm not picking on. Sometimes they'll throw it into an admin's hand. I've seen where they throw it in where they feel like, oh, they kind of get it. So yeah, here's that. I have a whole theory, like I have got a whole, set of methodologies that say, look, there's several steps that you've got to run into. One, you're got to have your executive team buy-in on this deal. 2,
100%.
you need product champions. You need people outside from many different segments of your company, especially if it's a wide-reaching, type of software. It's not a point software, but it affects several different areas. So you got to have product champions. Those product champions have to be able to work together, and you're still going to have one leader who can lead that team, right? And then that person, that leader that can lead that team into software implementation, has to have the bandwidth. And I think the biggest failing that comes into this is that leader is probably stretched so thin, because not only do they already have their day job to do, but now they've got to implement this software, which they probably were never trained on implementing software or doing those kind of things, or maybe they've done one in the past and then all of a sudden it never gets It never gets there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why, like, today, still today, there's still the statistic that kind of hangs out there that says, 70%. I don't know if that number's gone down, but 70% of software fails from the get go. I know companies that have spent 2 years trying to roll out a software, and by
Yeah.
that time,
Yeah.
it's flat. It's gone flat.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole thing. I guess there's a whole program that needs to happen for these companies to get their software going and get it going in a
Yeah.
timely manner.
And so like that is such a critical piece of like what we're solving for is we're over investing in that. And what do I mean by that is we like in person because if you think about the industry as a whole, it's very relationship based. People want in person, right? And software, like a lot of these companies they've never bought software. They've never gone through a process. I never did when I was in the industry. I never was constantly seeking software until I started to see how it came. And you know, the industry, the industry is like it's still not ready yet for like some of the changes that are happening, but people are realizing that's coming. And so we overinvest in that piece and we overinvest in it for that exact reason of like, hey, we want to make sure that like you have a great experience because the lifetime value of that customer for us as a software company is very valuable. So you need to make sure that you have them right because that not only is like a valuable thing for us and for the product, right? But like the network effects in construction are it's a pretty small industry when you start thinking about it. It's not like, you're going to have a million people that are, in all talking about different things. Like they all, congregate in these like areas of events and trade shows. And they're really, really talking well about you if you do well. And if you don't, like they'll
Yeah.
also say, this was not good,
Yeah,
you know?
you see the leaders, and obviously there's some very, very large, construction companies who probably have full teams of, R&D departments and development departments, and they have their own stuff. And again, those are kind of outliers. But like your market, my market when I'm consulting, what does that look like for you? Like we're talking mid level to large,
Yeah, mid to large.
contractors.
Like, we like typically where we see the threshold of where like you're looking and searching to solve the problem of like all materials and equipment management. What we do is that $10 million top line threshold, because at 10 million as a business, you're starting to scale. You're starting to put in processes. You've got a lot of order. You're doing about 3.5 million of material ordering. That's like that's going to eat into your margins if you don't manage it well. And that's where we start to
Yeah,
see the scale of a process. Anything under 10 million, we typically have seen, like if you're 5 to 4 million, it's like an owner that can do it all. Like he can do it all. He's got it in his head.
yeah, but he needs to
And
figure out
like,
how to buy back his time, though.
yeah, exactly. And the problem though is like that owner's the one that wants that you're going to have to get to implement it. And he's going to say, I'm
Yeah,
too busy. I can't even do this.
yeah,
At that scale where you start to go, you have people that have a process, but also people that can dedicate the time to solving it and implementing it. Once you get to the 50, 100 million, 200, 500 million, that's where it's like the order volume is so much that it's a real business problem where if they don't put a handle on it, like they'll keep eating into their margins and they truly cannot scale to that next level. And every
yeah,
company is scaling. It's not like we're talking to companies that don't have enough work. In fact,
yeah.
we see more companies that have more work coming down the line with backlogs
Can't get
filled
to
than
it.
I've seen
Yeah,
ever,
yeah,
you know?
can't get to it. Well, and, do you think does a lot of that have to do they just don't have enough labor to cover all the work that's there, or is it
It's
delays in, they've got a backlog, they've got an
yeah.
idea of where they're gonna get to, but, maybe they whether they can't staff it properly or they're just in, kind of pre-construction hell where they're trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
get into the job.
Some of it's staffing, some of it is, like, just delays of, like, work, but, there is the people are now looking at software as, like, the ability to scale because it can reduce headcount as you scale. You don't need to layer on as many people to do those same tasks, and that's a fact. Like, we've seen companies go from 10 to 20 or 20 to 40 million double, and they can do that type of work in these systems with the
Mhm.
right people without having to add that type of headcount, you
Yeah.
know?
I've seen jobs be delayed basically, especially in that pre-construction phase because of some procurement issues, supply chain issues, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
that why would
Switch
we
gear.
even" Yeah, why
Yep.
would we even open up this job to go? We can't even get the switchgear yet,
Mhm.
let's, you know, give it a sec where we can make some of the major orders, right? But
Yep.
let's we're not gonna open up the job site just yet. It's a waste of time because
Yeah,
it'll sit
switchgear
idle. It'll sit idle for a while.
switchgear's been a big one, especially like a lot as a lot of the data centers are coming on. There's been a lot of demand for that. Plus, like, you know, I remember I think it was a couple years ago back in Miami, Amazon was building some really massive warehouses, distribution centers, and they were buying up all the bar steel joists.
Yeah,
Like, literally steel joists, like, you couldn't get steel joists because Amazon was buying them all up for these massive
right,
warehouses, and, like, that had an effect on, like, other warehouses around the country and other jobs, and
right.
so I remember
They
trying
built
to
a ware
redesign
Yeah,
some of
they
these
probably
warehouses
built a
to accommodate.
warehouse. Yeah, they probably built a warehouse just to house the stuff for their warehouses.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it was a real joist, like, and then I remember back in the condo boom in Miami, there was a cement shortage, so
Oh,
they couldn't get
yeah.
enough cement to make concrete, and so there was a cement shortage and concrete skyrocketed,
Yeah, I
to,
always
like,
wonder about that too.
insane. Yeah, yeah,
I
so
always
they
wonder
had to
about that.
import all this different type of cement to make sure they can make the concrete, yeah.
Right. I always wondered about that too. When I was working in trade. So I started out as a carpenter's apprentice and, worked my way up through the trades. But I remember at one point in time there was a drywall shortage, gypsum.
Yeah, yes,
Apparently somewhere there was a gypsum boat that
yeah,
sunk.
and
I don't know.
yep, no, you're 100% right, and that happened in Miami in the condo boom, and they were importing Chinese drywall.
Yeah.
Chinese drywall came in. 4 years later, 5 years later, the sulfur out of the Chinese drywall started to eat up inside the apartments. We It was a disaster. They had to rip out all the drywall, and then in the state of Florida, there's a lot of different statutes for condo associations. The condo associations, I believe it's like a 558 did what's called a 558 claim where they came after all the builders. The
Mhm.
owners, the developers, they were gone. They had made their money, they closed down their companies, on to the next LLC. But
Yeah.
the builders, the ones that actually like built the building that didn't really know that Chinese drywall would do this, but they were trying to build these buildings. That was a huge, yeah. There was a big drywall shortage, and it was that you can look it up. It was like a Chinese drywall crazy. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well,
a lot
so
of
yeah.
attorneys made a lot of money there.
Yeah, well, that's usually the only people that ever make money in these things. It's
Yeah.
just the attorneys.
Hmm.
So, what's next, for you guys? I mean, you're working on, this platform is for subcontractors to
Hmm.
kinda streamline their purchasing and materials handling, system, and what's next? Where are you at with this? And, like, how's things going? How are you growing?
Yeah, no, we're growing steadily. What's next for us is really diving deeper into a couple of the workflows that are very similar to materials, like equipment, right? Where I want to track equipment rental externally and internally, because what we're noticing in SubBase is that people want to do that inside the platform because the workflows are very similar. And so we're getting deeper into that piece of the platform with some great companies, getting deeper into the analytics side. And honestly, like, there's so much going on with artificial intelligence and structuring of the data, and how can you make a better experience for the field, right? The field is so important in this process because, good implementation, especially in materials, like, you have to include the field in it. And so we're doing a lot of enhancements around, hey, how do we make it just so good that someone in the field doesn't have to do any thinking about what material, right? Where they're going to get it from, or who or how they're going to order it. Make it
Mhm.
so seamless and so simple. And that's like a lot of our focus right now, especially in this quarter, is like make that field experience so good that ordering materials anywhere else is just, you can't do it because it's just so easy and so seamless there. So those are like our two biggest focuses right now.
So I love that idea. I did a podcast, one time, with, Kyle Nitchin of, Leighton Construction, and
Hmm.
we were talking about the Empire State Building, that build. And one of the things that was interesting and kind of flows into what you guys are doing with materials, there's a concept in lean construction that basically says you only need the materials when you need them because
Hmm.
there's a there's a problem when you get too many materials on the job, whether it's damage or not the right materials, or they're taking up too much space in your setup areas and all those kind of things. And so I see this technology, AI, LLMs, these kind of things, being able to actually say, okay, to your point, man, let's get you guys don't need to worry about it. We've got the list of where we're going to order this from because we've got best pricing. We're sitting there monitoring it every day. We know where this is going to come from. We're going to know availability, right, based upon that analytic, right? And we're going to see, and then we also know the schedule, right? And if we have a layer of completion, like where we're at in the job somewhere that we can then compare that to, then we say, okay, guess what? AI could automatically just say, all right, look, I've got my layer of completion going. We're at this point in the schedule. I've got these vendors lined up for this material. We can get this delivered on this day. It should be ready for these subs or these people on this day, and it's ready to go.
Yep.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I see where, and when we were talking about the build for the Empire State Building, they were literally bringing I-beams in that were still hot from the foundry, right?
It's crazy.
Insane. The guys had to wear these thick gloves in order to pull it off the truck, to put it on the crane, to go lift it into place. I mean, and so that kind of thing. And of course, the Empire State Building is a marvel. It's really never been repeated, at least in the United States. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, this is the kind of level of construction I think most people want to get to. And I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're building houses, building apartments, if you're building, hotels, whatever you're doing, even industrial facilities, you're wanting to get to that point where the streamline, that it's the flow. You're trying to get into that flow state, right?
Yeah.
Now, I definitely see it.
Yeah. And look, we're very focused on like two pieces of the flow, right? Because we're in between a lot of workflows. And the first piece is the pre-con side, like you talked about, right? Pulling in from pre-construction, making sure that the pricing that you have on your pre-construction estimate, right, is actually accurate to what material pricing is doing right now or where it's going. And the other piece is on the vendor side, is connecting that vendor flow, because vendors have a lot going on in their back end with how those materials are procured. It's not just, you send an email or text to your outside sales rep and all of a sudden that just goes in like to this like system. It's like there's a lot of manual steps there too. So we're attacking from both ends, because ultimately we want to connect to the pre-con side, which we do today, but we want to do it a lot more seamlessly. We want to be able to connect into schedules, right? We want to be able to do all of that, because that is like truly how you can, push the envelope for that flow to really go from, hey, this is a conceptual job that we're estimating, to full blown operation, to, obviously that closeout, which we're not really involved with closeout, but we are involved with like the closing of like, okay, a vendor gets a material request. It's technically the last piece that a sub thinks about on the field, but not necessarily on the accounting side. Because on the accounting side, now they have to get paid. And so we're trying to close that entire loop from pre-con all the way to vendor back to the office.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, again, you've got subcontractors out there, especially if they've got a buyout piece. They've bought out, they've worked with their vendor, and then suddenly they've installed a product, and then they've got 30 days that needs to be paid for. All that stuff needs to be wrapped up at the end of the day. It still needs to be, collected into the books, and making sure that at the end of the day, hey, by the way, we're not printing red, we're printing actually in the black, right?
Exactly.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, and a lot of, look, the risk of a subcontractor.
Well, the retainage period. We could talk about the retainage period.
Yeah, the retainage. Yeah, exactly.
I've lost more money on the retainage period than I've, ever. It's just it's terrible.
For most subs, some GCs like are just not good people. We've seen it before where they think that retainage is extra profit, and they do. And we've seen it. When I was on the sub side, we saw it a lot where, a GC would think that the 10% retainage, and then we were on the GC side as well. And so we knew how delicate retainage was. Like, that is a large chunk of the subcontractors, like actual net profit is sitting in that bucket there. And so it's there's a lot of things that go on with retainage. That,
there was, and there were some shady characters out there that do see that. They beat up guys on the end of the job on that last 10%, and it's a tough deal. It really is. I'm not saying it's right at all. I'm just saying it's out there.
It's hard.
And if you're in construction and you're listening to this, you know what we're talking about. I mean,
Mhm.
especially if you're a subcontractor. General contractors know because general contractors always have their side of the story as well. I was a GC for a while too, so I get it. I understand. I know. So yeah, that's a whole nother, avenue of
Topic for
conversation.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could spend hours on that, just horror
Yeah.
stories of
Yeah. Yeah.
retainage hell. Yeah, I get it. So developing workflows, I do love it. We know that it's a complex situation, especially when you come to ordering materials and you got the field involved, subcontractors especially, because
Mhm.
as you say, their margins are very, very reliant on what the market is doing. And I don't, I'm not going to try to go down a political road or whatever, but we just saw the meeting, I guess, about with China and the tariffs and all those kind of
Mhm.
things. Is that affecting your business day to day? What people
It
say?
well, yes and no. I mean, some companies look at it as like, okay, like I want to be more proactive because even if there are going to be tariffs on certain type of commodities that I'm ordering from, like, what does that mean? A, it
Hmm.
means I may be able to take advantage of a bulk buy situation and actually utilize inventory to offset any tariff. And I'm going to go get a better deal and bulk buy all this now to have just in case, right?
Right. Yes.
Other companies are like, hey, I actually want a tool now because if tariffs are going to come into this market and I'm going to, be affected by it, I've got a contract with this owner or with this GC. I may want to go get quotes now. And I may actually want to go ping, multiple vendors to get the best price because I need to sustain my margin on the job that I signed up for. So it is bringing awareness to the market now in materials of like, hey, the good old phone call, I need these items, the owners now and the CFOs and everyone in the project management level are saying, I don't know if we can keep just blanketly like, like retroactively ordering. Like, let's be a little bit more proactive. Let's get
Yeah,
a
they can.
price and let's actually get this done right.
Yeah, they could actually take a look at their backlog of business, right? And you sit there and go, okay, we've got this. We need to analyze these numbers of this backlog of
Exactly.
business. What's going to be good for us in this position? And in three
Yeah.
months, is that going to change? Again, they're going to have to utilize probably AI, some sort of analytic tool to sit
hmm
there and go, hey, how do we measure this? Our best measurements
Part of the
against it.
best companies that we see that are in the platform today, some of them do use inventory. Like we can manage their stock inventory so that when they order, they can draw it down. Are being more proactive on, okay, we've got 4 jobs coming up next year, this year. I know that I'm going to need, 100,000 square feet of MDO plywood. I know that. Like, unless that job goes under, I know that. And even if it does, like, it can still. And I want to actually look at the market and see because I think that I can buy it now better, right?
Right,
But right now, it's I think where we're headed as a platform is we're gonna know, hey, yes, you can buy it better now because
right.
you've historically bought it for this, but this is actually where things are trending.
Yeah. And then that I did I wrote about that the other day. I was like, AI is not here to replace people, but it's here to enhance your math skills a little bit. Again, it gives you some advantages that maybe some of the other big boys would already have, right? It really does kind of level the playing field when it comes to that kind of needing that intellect, that kind of business analytic, really does level the playing field. So I see it.
Yeah, and look, a lot of like where AI is headed is it's gonna take good people and make them great, and it's gonna take people that like want to learn and want to be better in their career and give them that opportunity. It's
Yeah.
it's really it's really pretty phenomenal.
So now we talked about this earlier. You went to Florida, and you just did a speaking thing over
hmm
there, and you were actually talking about AI. Can you kind of go into that
Yeah.
a little bit? Yeah, let's.
Yeah, it was cool because the University of Florida Rinker School of Construction, which is the school that I went to, is one of the leading construction schools in the country that's actually forward thinking about how artificial intelligence is going to impact the next level of students that are graduating. And what was great was we spoke about like what is AI, like how is it going to actually affect like the new graduates coming out of school, and they're training the graduates on how to use it, they're training the graduates on why. But what's also interesting is that there's also other career paths now that are evolving out of the construction school. It's not like everyone is just going to go into the field and operate or go into like this business. It's, hey, there's actually a software side of construction that, that would be very helpful, especially if you have a background in construction, you understand technology, you understand how to build.
Yeah.
That's great for the industry. It's great for companies like SubBase and like others in the construction tech world, because we would love to have young talent that's hungry, that wants to really, build something great, that has the construction knowledge because they've been interning a little bit, maybe have some field experience, right? But also have that level of knowledge on, hey, this is how AI can be used to help on, implementing software in the field. Like that's a big, big, big piece of where we see the future of construction. It's a couple of different career paths now that are coming out because of what artificial intelligence is allowing for companies like what we're building.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating, kind of a fascinating point of view, and how it's kind of changed the world in a little bit, in a short period of time, and it's moving very quickly. But man,
Mm-hmm.
the possibilities for a person, and I don't care. Look, I don't care if you just got out of high school and you went into the trades and you're working in the trades. Guess what? You're going to have the ability to step into some technology and start getting some technology experience, right? And
Mm-hmm.
start realizing, guess what? These two are going to be, integrated in the next 5 to 10 years.
100%.
You're going to have to know a bit of technology to be in the construction industry. I don't care. Yes, if
Well,
you're in the
yeah,
labor force, you're still going to be pouring concrete. You're going to be
100%.
doing all that kind of thing, but you're going to have to know a little bit of that technology of how it works and how to, get it to report out exactly what you need, and
Yeah.
utilize the analytics. On
Yeah.
the flip
Look,
side of that,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, no, it's interesting because like if you think about the students that are graduating now, they grew up with phones in their hands. Like there is no like when I grew, and young, but I'm not as young. Hold on one second. I lost my train of thought. The the biggest piece is like they are so used to tech in their face, right?
Yeah,
They go into an office, big new construction company. They go into an office, and what do they see? They see stacks of paper. They'll look at these insane spreadsheets. They'll look at this manual process, ordering hundreds of millions of materials. They go at home at night. They click a couple buttons. Boom. Instant gratification of this, that, and I got my information. Where they go into the office for their entire day and they don't see that. And it's
yeah,
like wildly different. And that is the
yeah.
shift that we're going to start to see over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and like I said, the younger generation can certainly be a part of the transformation that happens within construction. They can certainly, and again, you need the institutional knowledge from the older folks that are retiring out. You're going to need that. You have to have it, but you're also going to need some of that innovative thought that comes from folks that have, again, like you said,
100%.
have had technology in their hand from the day they were, old enough probably to walk, right?
Yep.
So I
Yep.
find that fascinating. I think there is so much involved in this transformation. I think there are different, whole different job sectors, whole different business applications that will arise out of this. Especially for the construction industry, I think, and again, if you're not going to engage with it, okay, that's fine. You'll probably stay, where you are. If you're in a business and you're not going to engage with your technology, you're probably going to stay where you are, and that's fine. No
Hmm.
judgment there. But if you want to grow, I
Yeah.
don't care if you're a subcontractor, general contractor, equipment rental house, whatever you are, guess what? You're going to have to engage with, products like SubBase. You're going to have to engage with all the different softwares. You're going to have to find a way to get your tech stack aligned so that it serves your processes.
Hmm.
And you're also going to have to probably adjust some of your processes that you already have in order to work with technology, because some of them are broken.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just
And
are.
and that right. And what we say is we know that any software, including Subbase, it's not going to be 100% perfect for everything you do in your business, right? But the effort we make to make sure that we can get there is like what's important, because there are things that you may have to change along the flow. Like you may have to change from handwriting a piece of paper into something, or hand typing. Like you may have to change the way that you were uploading or using your accounting system to manage your materials, because it's just not built for that. So those
Yeah.
are the types of things that we like to talk about.
And I love that thought too. There's nothing that's 100%. There never has been. Again, I don't care if a spreadsheet is not 100%,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That piece of paper is not 100%. Your software is not going to be 100%, but it could be 80, which is good, right?
Yep.
And I think about that a lot when I start to think about if I'm if it's 80% better, if I unless you're 30% better than you were before, you're going to be gaining those 30% or whatever it is you're making that, and it's going to affect your margin, your growth, all of those things, right? At the end of the day, subs, especially for subs, the way I look at it, you're going to have to start bringing the receipts to say, even to the GCs to say, what are you guys doing to show me that, what's your history look like to show me that you're growing in this digital realm? There are going to be other companies out there that are going to be utilizing digital technology to bring the receipts
Mhm.
to the job before it ever gets started. It's like, here's what we
Yep.
did on the last one. Here's the
100%.
analytics from it, right?
Yeah.
It's almost going to be like the ticket to entry.
Yeah, exactly right. 100%. And it's exciting, but it's also like some people it freaks some people out, but it
It
is
does freak
exciting to see
people out,
where
yeah. It
where the
freaks
industry
me
is
out
going.
sometimes. Yeah, it freaks me out sometimes. I gotta be honest
Yeah.
now. I'm
Yeah.
older, right?
Yeah,
I'm old
100%.
school. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things like, well, yeah, it's not what I'm used to. It's not what I'm used to. It's not what I grew up with, but I see the train. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm not
Yep.
going to deny that that train is in motion and it's not going to stop. I'm not going to stop it. So I might as well
Yeah.
learn about it. I might as well embrace a bit of it. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but I'm going to say I'm, 80%.
Yep.
I'm going to
Yeah,
get
no, for sure. Yeah, it's
right.
great.
So,
Yep.
well, okay. How do people get a hold of you? How do they, get in touch with you to talk about
Yeah.
SubBase to
We're very heavy on LinkedIn, so they can contact me directly on LinkedIn or follow us on LinkedIn, and then through our website. It's pretty simple. It's just SubBase, SUBBASE.io. Can interact with us there or LinkedIn. Those are usually the two most common forms of interaction that we see.
Very good. Well,
Yeah.
certainly, I think everybody should reach out to you. I think all the Florida Gators fans should probably reach out to you at some point for.
Right. Definitely. You're a Florida Gator fan and you're or University of Florida grad. We'll have a
Yeah,
lot in common
that's
between
right.
construction and technology. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Well, Eric, thank you so much. I know it took a little bit of time for us to get to this, but I'm finally glad we finally got a chance to talk and talk
Yeah,
about your
it's great.
product and just have a good conversation. Like I tell everybody, I always want to check back with you in 3-4 months, kind of see how things are going.
Yeah.
So we'll talk in 2026 sometime. But man, thank you for being with me today.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert, for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's the episode today with SubBase and Eric Helitzer. Hey, ConTech Exec crowd, thank you for tuning in. We got a lot more coming up in the near future, and hopefully Eric will visit us in 2026, and we're going to talk more about where SubBase is at and where you can get it. But until then, we'll see you next time.